It started the second week I moved in. A soft knock at the door, 2 quick taps, then silence. It was 2:07 a.m. I remember the time because I was up watching something mindless on my laptop, trying to forget how quiet my new apartment building was at night. I paused the video, waited. Nothing. I assumed someone had the wrong unit, or maybe it was a prank. But then it happened again the next night, and the next. Always 2 knocks, always 2:07, never any footsteps, never any voices. I tried to catch her once. I say her because I'd started to get a feeling, like it was someone I'd seen in passing during the day. A woman in her late 50s who lived 2 doors down, always wearing the same long gray sweater, never smiled. The 5th night, I stood by the peephole starting at 2 o'clock. Watched the hallway, empty, nothing moved. At exactly 2:07, I heard the knock, 2 soft raps, and jerked back in shock, because there was no one there. I flung the door open, looked both ways, hall empty, no sound of footsteps, no doors closing. I couldn't sleep after that. So the next day, I stopped her in the hallway. "Hi, I'm in 3B. I just moved in. I think maybe someone's knocking on my door at night." She looked at me, tilted her head. "It's probably just the pipes." "No, it's definitely someone knocking, twice, always at the exact same time." She smiled then, but it wasn't kind. It was tight. Plastic. "Well, you should answer next time." I didn't know what to say to that. I just mumbled something and kept walking. That night, I moved a chair into the hallway and sat behind the door, lights off, phone recording. At 2:06, my heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd scare her off just from the sound. Then, 2 soft knocks, right against the wood. I ripped the door open, no one. I checked the hallway camera, nothing. Just me opening the door into empty air. But when I turned around, something caught my eye, a note, slipped halfway under the door. It read, "Why don't you ever answer me when I come inside?" I froze. Inside? The door had been locked, right? I spun around, checking the lock. It was still set. Deadbolt, too. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I called the property manager, asked if the hallway cams were functional, and if anyone else had reported strange activity. He hesitated. "You said you're in 3B? "Yeah." "That unit's had some issues in the past." "What kind of issues?" "Look, if it's a noise complaint or harassment, you can file a report, but I don't have access to those cameras. You'll need to talk to the building owner." I did, left a voicemail, never heard back. That night, I left my phone recording again. This time on a voice memo. The knock came at 2:07, but it wasn't just the knock. There was breathing, heavy, raspy. Then a voice, barely above a whisper.
"It's cold out here."
I didn't open the door. I should have left. I know that. But I was stuck in this bizarre mix of fear and curiosity. I wanted to understand what was happening. So the next night, I left the door unlocked. At 2:07, the knock came, and the door creaked open, just an inch. I sat there in the dark, holding my breath. A whisper followed.
"Thank you."
I turned the light on. No one was there. But on my kitchen counter, there was a mug, filled with steaming tea. I don't even own that mug. The next day, I taped a note to the door. "Please stop." That night, I found it torn in half. One piece outside, one piece inside on my nightstand. I stayed at a hotel for a few days after that. When I returned, everything seemed untouched, quiet, until the final night. I woke up at 2:06, heart pounding, not sure why. Then the knock came. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This time, the door didn't just open. It swung wide, and standing in the doorway was her. The woman from 2 doors down, same gray sweater, same flat stare, but her mouth was hanging open like a broken hinge, and her feet weren't touching the floor. She hovered for a moment, then said in a voice that wasn't hers,
"You're home now."
Then she vanished, just gone. No footsteps, no door closing, just the sound of my own screaming. I moved out the next day, told the landlord I didn't care about penalties, told him I didn't care if he thought I was crazy. As I was leaving, I passed her unit. The door was open, empty inside, dust everywhere, a broken mug on the floor, and taped to the inside of her door was my original note. Please stop. But someone had written beneath it in red ink, "You were the one who opened it." When I first moved into the duplex, the landlord told me the upstairs unit was vacant. "It's been empty since last fall," he said, still trying to find the right tenant. That was fine with me. I liked the quiet. The place was old but charming. Wood floors, creaky stairs, weird wallpaper in the hallway, and best of all, I wouldn't have to deal with anyone stomping around above me. So when I started hearing footsteps, I didn't think much of it. Old buildings make noise, right? It started about a week after I settled in. Around midnight, I'd hear slow pacing overhead. Not frantic, not random, just rhythmic. Step, step, pause, turn, step, step, pause. It went on for about 20 minutes every night, always the same time, always the same pattern. I figured it was just the house settling, until the footsteps started following me. If I moved into the kitchen, the pacing moved too, directly above. If I went to the bathroom, I'd hear creaks overhead in the same spot. It was like someone was mirroring me, tracking me. The next morning, I called the landlord. "Hey, are you sure no one's living upstairs?" "Positive," he said. "Why?" "I'm hearing footsteps, like a lot, at night." He sighed. "Yeah, she used to say that too." "Who?" "The last tenant. Same thing. Pacing, whispers. Thought it was haunted. I figured it was just rats." "Big rats," I muttered. He laughed, but it felt forced. "Look, the unit's empty. No electricity, no heat. If someone was up there, they'd freeze." That didn't exactly reassure me. That night, I stayed up with my phone recording audio. At exactly 12:01 a.m., the sounds began. Step, step, pause, drag, step, step, pause. Then, something new. A thud, like someone dropped something heavy. Then scraping, like furniture being pulled across the floor. The next morning, I played the recording back and nearly dropped my phone. At the 37-second mark, you can clearly hear a whisper.
"Still here."
I left the apartment for the day. Took a long walk, tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Ghosts don't exist. Maybe I was picking up sounds from a neighbor's TV. Maybe the walls were thin. But that night when I got home, I noticed something. The hallway light, the one right outside the upstairs unit, was on. I hadn't turned it on. I hadn't even touched that switch since moving in. I called the landlord again. "Hey, the light upstairs is on." "Impossible. I turned the breaker off." "Well, it's on now." Silence. "Look," he said finally. "I'll stop by tomorrow." Just hang tight. I didn't want to, but I did. At midnight, I sat in the living room, staring at the ceiling. The footsteps came again, but this time they didn't pace. They ran, back and forth, like someone was sprinting in tight circles over and over again. I stood up, heart pounding. Then everything went still, and something knocked on the ceiling. 3 times, right above me. I backed into the hallway and looked up the stairs. That's when I saw it. The upstairs door was open. Only a crack, but I could see it swinging gently, like it had just been pushed. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the landlord showed up. He looked tired, older than I remembered. When I pointed to the door, still slightly ajar, he didn't say anything. just marched up the stairs, pulled out a ring of keys, and opened it fully. I followed him. Probably shouldn't have. The air inside was wrong, cold, still. The whole apartment was bare, no furniture, no curtains, just dust and old floorboards. Except for one thing. In the corner of the living room, there was a chair, facing the wall, and next to it a notebook. The landlord picked it up, flipped through it. His face went pale. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer, just closed it and tucked it under his coat. "You should go downstairs," he said. "I'll lock up." Later that day, I slipped back upstairs. He'd left the notebook on the counter. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Every page was filled with notes, times, dates, observations of me. She left for work at 7:48. She eats dinner at the coffee table. She hums when she cooks. One page read, "She hears me now." I think she's ready. The last entry simply said, "Tonight I'll come down." I dropped the notebook and ran. When I confronted the landlord, he didn't deny anything. "That place, it does things to people," he said. "You stay long enough and you hear things. Then you start seeing them. Then you start answering back." "What happened to the last tenant?" I asked. "She moved out, same as you should." I did. 2 days later. I never went back for my deposit, never packed up, just left. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I hear it again. Step, step, pause, directly overhead. And I don't live above anyone anymore. When I first met Jonah, he seemed harmless. A quiet, older guy. Lived across the hall from me in our small apartment building. Always wore the same dark flannel jacket, even in summer. Always nodded politely, but never said much. We shared a wall, but I never heard a sound from his side. No TV, no phone calls, no music, just silence. Then, one day, we ran into each other by the mailboxes, and he struck up a conversation. I was surprised, but he seemed lonely, and I've never been great at saying no. He asked what I did. I told him I worked from home, freelance writing. He smiled and said, "That explains the typing." "You can hear me?" I asked, not clearly, just sometimes. That should have been the end of it, but a week later he knocked on my door. He had something in his hands and a small dusty photo album. "I thought you might like this," he said. "I've been playing around with photography again." I didn't know what to say. It felt weird, but I didn't want to be rude. So I took it. "Thanks, I'll take a look." He just smiled and walked back to his unit, closing the door quietly behind him. When I opened the album, I froze. The photos were of me, dozens of them. Me taking out the trash. Me at the laundromat down the block. Me walking up the stairs. Me in my window, talking on the phone. Even one of me asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, mouth slightly open. I dropped the album on the floor. How had he taken these? More importantly, how had he gotten into my apartment? I called the police. They showed up, took the album, questioned Jonah. But nothing happened. He told them I'd asked for portraits for a documentary project I was writing, that I gave him access to my schedule, and since there was no proof of a break-in, no direct threat, they left. He left the album behind on my doorstep that night. With a note, "Don't lie about me. I just wanted you to see how beautiful you are when you don't know anyone's watching." I taped over my laptop camera, bought new curtains, changed the locks. I even ordered a cheap security camera for my door. Still, I couldn't sleep. Every creak made me flinch. Every shadow stretched too long. I started avoiding my own windows. A few nights later, I found another photo. This time, it was slid under my door. It showed my bed from above, like someone had been standing over me while I slept. On the back was written, "You dream so much louder than you think." I stopped sleeping entirely after that. I filed a restraining order, but it barely made a dent. I never caught him doing anything directly. He was always just around. Until the night I got home late and found my apartment door cracked open. I know, I locked it. Triple-checked it before I left, I always do. Inside, nothing seemed touched, nothing stolen. But something was different. The air felt heavier, still. I walked slowly through the apartment, calling out, "Jonah?" No answer. In the kitchen, everything looked normal, until I opened the fridge. Inside, taped to the inside wall, was a photo. A picture of me standing exactly where I was, wearing exactly what I was wearing. Taken from behind. The timestamp? 10 seconds ago. I ran. I stayed at a friend's house for 2 days, filed another police report. They searched his apartment this time, found nothing. No camera, no film, no evidence. But they did find a dark room, hidden behind a false wall in the closet. Inside were dozens of photos, all of me, in various outfits. Some I didn't even remember wearing, some I never owned. And in one of the photos, I wasn't alone. There was a man standing behind me in the kitchen, blurry, unrecognizable. But it wasn't Jonah. When they confronted him, he denied everything, claimed he'd inherited the equipment, said the photos must have been left by the previous tenant. They couldn't hold him. So I left, moved out that same week, paid double rent to break the lease, changed my name on everything I could. It's been 6 months, no new incidents, no photos. But 2 nights ago, I got an envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Me, sitting at my new desk, writing this exact story. And in the reflection on my computer screen, a figure, standing behind me. Mr. Tully lived alone. Always had, from what the other neighbors said. He was quiet, polite, a little odd, the kind of man who waved without smiling, and collected his mail at exactly 6 p.m. every day. His unit was across from mine. Same floor, same angle, just mirrored. Our living room windows faced each other across the narrow courtyard. If I opened my blinds, I could see directly into his, which is how I noticed when he stopped moving. At first, I thought maybe he'd gone on a trip, but after 3 days of the same scene, his window open, light on, curtains half drawn, I started to wonder. On the 5th day, a maintenance worker knocked on my door. "Have you seen Mr. Tully lately?" he asked. I told him no, not in a week. They found him the next morning, dead in his kitchen, heart attack, alone. The coroner's van came and went. His door was sealed. They left the blinds open. I don't know why that bothered me so much. Maybe because every time I passed my own window, I saw the outline of his place. Dark, still, empty. Or it should have been. That was the first night I saw him. I was brushing my teeth, not really thinking, and glanced out the window. And there he was, standing in his living room. Just a silhouette, perfectly still, but unmistakably him. I choked on mouthwash. By the time I ran to the window, the lights were off. The room was dark again. I didn't sleep. The next day, I asked the building manager if someone had already moved in. "Not yet," he said. "Still working through the estate. Won't be anyone in there for weeks." "Are the lights on?" "Nope. Power's been cut." I nodded, but something in my chest twisted. That night, I stayed by the window, blinds open, room dark behind me. At 12:14 a.m., the light in his apartment flickered on, and there he was, standing by the window, watching me. I blinked, and the light snapped off. I closed my blinds and didn't open them the next morning. But when I left for work, I found something wedged under my doormat, a single black and white photo of me, standing in my own window from the outside. The perspective was unmistakable. It had been taken from Mr. Tully's apartment. I dropped it, ran down to the manager's office. He looked concerned, but not surprised. I'm not saying I believe in this stuff, he muttered, but you're not the first. What do you mean? 3 tenants before you asked to move after he passed. All said they saw things, heard him, smelled pipe smoke. One swore she woke up and saw his reflection in her window instead of her own. And you didn't think to tell me before I moved in? Would you have taken the apartment if I had? I left, stayed with my sister for a week, but curiosity has teeth, and mine sank deep. I came back, just to check. Just to prove I hadn't seen what I thought I saw, and of course the apartment was still dark, still sealed, until that night. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of tapping. Not loud, just persistent. I turned over. The room was dimly lit by the moon, and the blinds were moving, even though the window was closed. I got up, heart hammering, reached for the cord, pulled the blinds apart. His window was wide open, curtains fluttering, and behind them a shape, not just standing this time, smiling. I fell back, crawled away from the window like a child hiding from a nightmare. The next morning, I noticed something else. The light in his apartment burned out permanently, but I still saw flickers at night, still felt the weight of eyes on me. I called the utility company. They confirmed it. That unit's power had been disconnected 2 weeks ago. There should be no light, no heat, no camera flashes. But last night I woke up to find my own apartment door unlocked, and a single item placed carefully in the middle of my kitchen table. A coffee mug, white ceramic, chip on the handle, with the initials RT engraved in black. Mr. Tully never had visitors, but now it feels like he never left, and I still see him, every night, smiling from the window, waiting for me to open the blinds.